Ukrainian soldiers demonstrated the synchronized and coordinated work of the units of the 2nd Tank Battalion in the Pokrovsk direction. The fighters reported that two crews simultaneously opened fire in different settlements and, with direct fire, destroyed buildings where the enemy had set up their positions. As a result, Russian infantry was eliminated.
This combat episode is not just a coincidence, it is proof of coordinated combat skill and readiness to act decisively under any conditions. We work in unison, strike accurately, and move forward. From a statement by the 5th Separate Heavy Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces on Facebook.
Since the beginning of the day, Ukrainian soldiers have repelled 26 Russian attacks in the Pokrovsk sector of the front. The enemy unsuccessfully tried to break through the defense forces' positions near 14 settlements. Another 12 Russian assaults were repelled in the Novopavlivka sector. There, the Russians attempted to advance near 10 settlements.
We understand that the enemy has set themselves the task of advancing far enough to encircle the Pokrovsk-Novorodivka agglomeration and to use the so-called Avdiivka scenario, namely to destroy the defense or to weaken it as much as possible by delivering artillery and airstrikes against the group of troops defending there. That is why we are now witnessing such desperate attempts by the enemy to break through around Pokrovsk.
Our soldiers also steadfastly repelled enemy attacks in other directions. In particular, a total of more than 13 assaults were repelled in the Lyman, Siversk, Kupiansk, Kramatorsk, Pridniprovsk, Toretsk and Orikiv directions. Ukrainian soldiers note that when the sky is buzzing with Russian FPVs and Mavics, the mobile fire teams of the armed forces of Ukraine cover the infantry and go out to hunt for drones that the enemy launches over the front line.
We can accompany ground force units, that is, provide them with cover from above. When the Russian occupiers realize that we are in the air, they can't lift their own drones over this section.
Since the beginning of the day, the enemy has made another 10 unsuccessful attempts to storm the defense forces' positions on the North Slobozhansky and Kursk sections of the front. However, as military experts note, it is the Ukrainian armed forces units that are conducting active offensive operations in the North Slobozhansky direction.
From the very beginning, it was clear that in the Sumy direction, the enemy did not have either a quantitative or qualitative advantage that would allow them to carry out large-scale offensive actions. Undoubtedly, these very simple words should make it abundantly clear to everyone that it is only as a direct result of the active counter-offensive and defensive actions of Ukraine's defense forces that such offensive actions by the enemy have become completely impossible. In certain areas, the penetration of Ukrainian troops into the enemy's defenses reaches up to 2.5 to 3 kilometers, which creates serious threats for the enemy, who has found themselves in an operational encirclement in this case, a tactical encirclement.
Fighters from the Special Operations Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces have reported a successful raid behind enemy lines. Ukrainian soldiers carried out a raid on Russian positions near the border with the Russian Federation. As a result of the operation, enemy personnel were eliminated and the exchange fund was replenished. In the past 24 hours, Ukrainian defense forces have eliminated another 1,130 Russian soldiers. In addition, the day before, Ukrainian defenders destroyed 3 Russian tanks, 4 armored combat vehicles, more than 120 drones, as well as damaged 105 units of automotive and special equipment belonging to the invaders. According to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia has already lost more than 1,035,000 of its soldiers.
Ukrainian engineers have developed a thermal imaging camera capable of operating in extreme conditions on the front lines. As noted by Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Transformation Mikhailo Fedorov, Ukraine is moving from importing military optics to domestic production, creating a new reality in the military technology market. No imports, no compromises, and with a focus on complete autonomy.
Thanks to an ultra-sensitive sensor, special calibration algorithms, and post-processing, these devices provide clear images in darkness, fog, rain, and during explosions. They are resistant to moisture and can even operate when submerged in water up to 1 meter deep. Battle-tested cameras assist Ukrainian soldiers in reconnaissance and target designation. We are changing the rules of the game in the military innovation market to create even more game changers for the battlefield. Mikhailo Fedorov, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The Lithuanian-Ukrainian high-level senior sergeant seminar was held in Ukraine for the first time in a country at war. The Lithuanian military delegation studied combat experience, the structure of the Sergeant Corps, and the methods that Ukrainian armed forces soldiers are already implementing on the battlefield. The fighters know that nowadays victory goes not to those who shoot more but to those who think better. Let me remind you, previously such meetings were held exclusively in Lithuania.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Land navigation, obstacle course traversal, grenade throwing, and evacuation of a simulated wounded person. These skills are taught in both theoretical and practical sessions at the Kharkiv Regional Center for Training Citizens for National Resistance. Moreover, the trainings are conducted in conditions as close to combat as possible. Our correspondents also attended one of these training sessions. Maria is the chief librarian at the Kharkiv State Library, but for a few days she traded the quiet halls filled with books for field conditions. As part of a team made up of civilians like herself, she threw grenades and completed the obstacle course for the first time. She admits it wasn't easy.
When the mine was attention, please, we are conducting mine drills. It was very difficult because we had to run downhill and uphill as well. There was a lot going on shooting, and it was also tough when we were throwing grenades. But we did great, we managed.
Alongside Maria is Anastasia, a school math teacher who also practiced tactical skills today. She says that as soon as she found out about the courses at the Center for Civil Resistance Training, she immediately decided to enroll.
My hope is
I hope I never have to use this knowledge, but since I work, I want to set an example for the children myself, as a homeroom teacher, and maybe teach them something.
Dmitry, an employee of the emergency services, also came to gain new knowledge. He says that at work he deals daily with the consequences of war, unexploded ordnance and the need to provide first aid to the wounded.
I saw everything that happened in Malarohan. I was present at the exhumations in Isium. I don't want this to ever happen again. And I came here to learn something. Not so long ago, I completed my mandatory military service, and now I'm also refreshing the skills I learned.
Alexander is 66 years old, and because of his age he can no longer fight. But at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, he joined the ranks of volunteers to defend his homeland. He says that back then he didn't have any special skills. Now he's decided that these skills might come in handy in civilian life.
And I came here both to set a positive and impactful example for others to follow, and also to diligently learn and acquire the valuable knowledge and practical skills that I was not adequately taught back when I was a volunteer in my earlier experiences.
Such centers for preparing citizens for national resistance were established throughout Ukraine by a decision of the Cabinet of Ministers. Anyone who wishes can take short training courses in tactics, learn how to apply tourniquets to stop bleeding, and practice practical exercises and tasks that are part of the general military training program for civilians.
We provide BA, we provide basic knowledge. Of course, this is not military training, but civilians get acquainted with weapons, learn to shoot, get familiar with grenades, mines, various explosives, and learn how to use them not to disarm them, but simply how to protect themselves and their loved ones from them, how to stay safe from explosive objects.
Several days of theory preceded the practical exercises. This is necessary in order to successfully complete the route in the forest, avoid tripping mines and pyrotechnic devices, and evacuate a simulated wounded person.
We assess them by the hour. We evaluate based on the time they spent overcoming obstacles. Then there's the shooting, everything is clear there, it's about hitting the target. With grenades, it's about accuracy, hitting the designated squares. It's not just about throwing a grenade, but throwing it exactly where it needs to go. The obstacle course is straightforward, you have to get through it quickly and complete all the tasks.
Against the backdrop of threats from Russia, European countries are also stepping up the training of their civilian populations. For example, Germany's Ministry of the Interior has proposed introducing civil defense classes in schools, where students will be prepared for possible emergencies during military conflicts. Since April 2025, Poland has been conducting joint civilian and military exercises as part of the Train with the Army campaign. Here you can experience firsthand what military service is like and strengthen useful civil defense skills. Such courses are also widespread in Finland.
this is a 16-kilometer zone from the border.
From here to Russia, it's only 16 kilometers. So we are so close that the thought inevitably arises, what if they decide to come across this side of the border just like they did in Ukraine without telling anyone, or like they came here in 1939? In Ukraine, such courses last for 3 days and are conducted in an intensive format. Since April 2025, in Kharkiv alone, 1,500 people have become participants in the Center for Population Training for National Resistance. Natalia Husak, Andrei Domovoy from Kharkiv region for Freedom Television Channel.